For more, let's speak to Andrij Dobriansky. He's an executive board member of the Ukrainian Congress Committee of America, and he joins us from New York. Welcome once again to Al Jazeera. So no resolution, still no deal struck. Are you hopeful, optimistic that they will be able to reach a deal that will stick?
Well, all Ukrainians want peace, but what we've been talking about as a Ukrainian community for months now is that you cannot have a resolution if only one side is escalating. And the unlimited resources, it seems, that Russia keeps sending into Ukraine, there were 1,500 more Russian soldiers that crossed over into Ukraine over the last couple of days, making it up to 10,000 now confirmed Russian soldiers, even NATO is reporting this, inside the territory of Ukraine. And as we know, most of these troops are now centered in the current conflict in Debaltseve, where over 50 people have been reported dead in the last 24 hours, but that could very likely be close to 100.
What happens then if these talks fail while the fighting just rages on there on the ground?
Well, what could happen with the talks would be some minor issues that need to be dealt with. One of the major ones being prisoner exchanges. There's a growing number of prisoners being held by both sides. Ukraine does have lots of documented evidence of Russian soldiers in Ukraine, as the president showed in Munich. But there's also lots of soldiers being kept by Russia. One in particular is now on her 60th day of a hunger strike in a Russian prison. Nadia Sauchenko was a Ukrainian pilot who has been kept and abused for several months now and being held on criminal charges, not as a war crime, but criminal charges in a Russian prison.
Now, the situation, could it spin out of control like the Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko has warned?
Well, that's what the rest of the world is looking at, and that's why we keep focusing our efforts in Washington here to have the U.S. get involved. The ability for this area of the world to spin out of control has been demonstrated time and time and again over the centuries. It's not like when you go through Ukraine, there's a natural border to stop you. You would then proceed on to other areas. What we're looking at in Ukraine is the possibility of the Russian advance, the offensive, connecting Russia by land to Crimea and exposing more of Ukraine to Russian onslaught.
Okay, you are clearly keen for the U.S. to arm Ukrainian troops. President Obama said he's still undecided about whether or not to do that. The Russians, meanwhile, have said that if the U.S. does supply Ukrainian forces with weapons, that the fighting will just escalate.
It's very odd for the Russians to be against, to be so vocal about this when they refuse to acknowledge their 10,000 troops that they have in Russia. Why would it matter to Russia if the United States sent troops in if they don't have troops in Ukraine? So what the U.S. is going to do is escalate this in a very minor way, first by sending trainers over in March, which was announced by General Hodges, as well as we're working on a complete aid package of defensive measures. These are counter-battery radars, which can detect the 70% of casualties in eastern Ukraine have happened through heavy artillery and these missile attacks. If we could counter that with battery radar, early detection warning systems, we could reduce a lot of the lives who are being lost right now.
Okay, Andrij, thanks for speaking to us once again. Andrij Dobriansky, executive board member of the Ukrainian Congress Committee of America.